Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'd like to show you how to write your first method using the Unicorn method editor. Since this is an introductory video, let me show you first how to find the method editor. What you do is you go down here to the Unicorn button, you click that, and then there's 4 submodules, and you want to find the one with the little M on it and click that. This is the method editor. Now, before you try to make any kind of method, it's important to have a plan for what you're actually going to be running. So let me tell you about my plan that I've done today, and I'll put it on the screen there. So we're going to be doing a size exclusion column using an XK26 physical column with S200 chromatography resin in it. We're going to use the column in position 1. We're going to run it at 2.6 mils per minute. We're going to equilibrate the column for 1 CV before we actually load the sample. The sample is going to be 10 mils in volume, and we're going to load it using a capillary loop. And we're going to collect 15 mil fixed fractions. All right, so now that we've gone over the plan, how do we start? Well, I'm going to point you to the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and you'll just click that button, which is create a new method. And this is what comes up. So if you want to pick a system that's appropriate for the method you're running. So this is an Avant 25. This Avant 25, for example, couldn't run a method that goes at 30 mils a minute. You might also have to have pressure considerations or valves that may or may not be on the system to think about. Okay, and then now we're going to be using the predefined method selection right here. I already have it set to gel filtration, but you can do affinity chromatography or ion exchange, hydrophobic interaction chromatography. Really, almost all of it's right here. So, but we're going to do gel filtration, all right, and then we'll hit OK. This is what comes up. Before we start going over this, I want to click on, so notice that there are 2 tabs up here. If you're looking at this is the text instructions, like the detailed information of how the method runs. We're not going to be using this today in order to be able to do it, in order to be able to write this method. And this dialog box is just saying, hey, if you change the text, you might not get what's supposed to happen in the preset method. Just hit OK, and then we'll go back to this tab over here that's got all the much more readable form of entering in our method information. And what these are basically are just variables that the system will allow us to run each individual method at. So you could use any of these. Like I know we selected the predefined method was supposed to be SEC, but here we could still select desalting or affinity if we wanted to, but we're just gonna stick with SEC chromatography. And then over here, so that's the variables, right? And then over here we have the 4 different phases we're going to have to work our way through. So we're going to click on each of these boxes as we work our way through the method. And these are pretty self-explanatory, like the equilibration, we're going to start by washing the column out before we apply any sample. Then we're going to apply the sample, and then in the elution we're going to collect fractions. Okay, so what are our method settings? We said we were going to select a XK26 with S200 resin in it, and so this is the column we want to pick. But before I click on this, there's one other thing I want to show you in relation to choosing this. So you notice that the column volume here is set to 0.1 mils, and the pressure limit is set to the default for an Avant 25. When we select the column, those are going to change automatically. There you go. And that's because this is what's, logged inside the database of Unicorn for this particular column. So let's select some of the other variables. We're going to use column position 1 today, and we're going to enter in a flow rate of 2.6 mils per minute. But before we do that, I want to show you, like, let's click on the equilibration phase. If we wanted to, there's, a flow rate listed here. We could type in a flow rate there. Sample application also has a flow rate listed, and I think so does elution. Yep. So if we go up here to method settings though, and I type in 2.6 mils per minute, all the other ones will change. So equilibration is now 2.6 mils a minute, sample application and elution are all 2.6 mils per minute. Next, we're gonna figure out what buffer inlets we're using. So this is just the default A1 and B1. Later on in the equilibration, we'll talk about how much of each of these we're using, but right now we're just using the default. We're going to be running with the flow restrictor, the pH monitoring, and the UV at 280. All these last things are just kind of like odds and ends to go through, really. Okay, great. So now we'll go to the equilibration phase. I think all this is right. We can move on. So we already went over 2.6 mils per minute. Oh, beep beep. I was running like something on the systems control module, so that's what that was. So we already went over running at 2.6 mils per minute. So here we're going to be running buffers A and B, but we're going to be running 0% B. So really we're not even going to be running B at all, because 0% B means 100% A. Whenever I teach people how to use Unicorn, that can be something that they often trip themselves up over. And then we went over how many CVs we're going to wash the column for before we apply sample, and we're going to do 1 CV. Okay, I think that's everything for equilibration, right? Okay. If you want to, you can read through these. There's no harm. Like, you can click on this and kind of read through this and play around with it. Unicorn's really hard to break, and so is the Avant. All right, so then we're going to go to the sample application phase now. And we said we're going to load using a capillary loop, and we're going to load a volume of 10 mils. So this is already set to the default capillary loop, manual load. Manual load, what this means isn't that you're physically doing it. It just means that the system is set to the position for the injection valve. All right, and then in order to load 10 mils, we're going to empty the loop with, let's say, 12 mils. And why it doesn't say sample volume and instead of empty loop with is because basically, you're allowed to, like, what this is allowing you to do is run an extra couple mils through the loop to make sure you wash out everything out of the loop. All right, so still using inlet A1. This would allow us to collect fractions. This might be helpful if we were doing like a different kind of chromatography, like ion exchange, and we wanted to test the flow through, but we're not going to be doing that. We're just doing size exclusion. So let's go to elution. It's the last phase. And really, we're only concerned about how long are we running the column for. We're going to be running for 1.5 CVs. Now, in my plan, I didn't say how long we're going to run it for. I don't think we need to run it for 1.5 CVs. Let's run it for 1.2 CVs. And then we're going to set the fractionation. And let's see here. So we're not going to be doing a gradient elution. Here's the fraction collector. So we're using a fraction collector. It's not going out to waste. And we're not using the outlet valve. Okay, so then we're going to do a fixed fraction volume, and we're going to set the rack type that can handle 15 mil tubes, and we'll just set this to 15 mil tubes. Okay. Now, this last variable here at the bottom is how soon do we want to start collecting fractions. So for size exclusion chromatography, it's kind of silly to start collecting fractions right away because it'll take the sample a while to get through the column. I'm going to be running an antibody, so I know it's a little bigger, but it's not going to race through the column instead of 0.2 CVs, so I might do 0.3. Okay. Now that's it for actually writing the method. You're done. We could save it, but I want to point out the start protocol to you, and that's this right here. And this tells you, all the different windows you're going to have to go through when you want to start the method. So if you want the variable list, I recommend selecting that, and the method information. The method information will tell you, for example, how long and how much volume you're going to go through when you run the method. And the variable list will allow you to change something at the last minute. Let's say, I can't find a 10 mil loop, or really what I'm going to be using is 2 5 mil loops connected end to end, but let's say I couldn't find the second one. So I can only run 1 5 mil loop now. So the variable list will allow us to change that. And then, of course, the result name and location, so we know where we're saving our file. We'll just hit OK. So now the start methodology is set, and we're going to go over here to save. We'll save it in that training folder I've been using. So this is my practice when I did it. So this is going to be SEC S200 method. Okay, save. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you have any suggestions for other tutorial videos I could do, make a comment below. Thank you.